Ladies and gentlemen, currently in America, they're waiting on the dawn of something that's quite important. It's the eclipse that happens only every few years. And I think it's appropriate because Xbox just got utterly eclipsed at Gamescom. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Thank you. I've got to give that one to Twitter. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of Games Up Podcast. My name is Cameron, and Lewis is back. Hey!
Hello, I'm here.
How are
I'm
you?
back. Good. Yeah, very good to be not studying.
You've been drastically missed. I ended up starting to do like list videos and shit. It was dark times. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different because it's partly reactions to a press conference and then sort of our regular stuff. So we'll get onto the regular stuff very quickly because there's not a lot of it. And then we'll get on to the topic because there's not much of that either. The news that starts us off this week is Mass Effect has effectively been killed. In no less words. The studio came out within the last kind of 24, 48 hours, I want to say, and released a statement that said that they are dropping all support for Mass Effect Andromeda. A real shame, though. We've got to be honest, we saw this coming. It was leaked a couple of months ago that the studio had been reassigned, that Mass Effect had been effectively stopped in its tracks. Kind of a shame to have to see the devs confirm it, though. Clearly a lot of love went into it. It was just not what it should have been.
Yeah, like there's not much love for the game, and I think like while people are a little bit disappointed, I don't think it's surprising. So hopefully in a few years' time we'll see something of Mass Effect again.
I gotta be honest, I don't think it's gonna be back anytime soon.
I need space games, but I need like a good one.
I would like to see them do like the trilogy HD to gauge more interest in it. But I don't know, like they had an opportunity to give it the kind of starting that it needed on the new generation, and they didn't really. There's a really fascinating article up on Kotaku. I can't remember who it's written by, but it's one of their best authors, and they detail where the project started, how it went. How it went into the stages that it went into, what it became in the end, and why it came out in the stages it did. It's a lot of mismanagement. It's a lot of resources being shifted back and forth and interest being moved around. It's one of the horror stories that you tend to kind of hear about in studios these days of there were lots of people, but they were not given a lot of direction in the right way. It kind of looks like the original idea of the game was to go down a sort of No Man's Sky route, and then there wasn't the people or assets to do that, so they made a more traditional Mass Effect game, but by flip-flopping between the two, they never really nailed one or the other. Generally, it's a great shame, though, and the game deserved far better than this, and that series deserved far better than this. So, may it rest for however long it rests, right?
Yeah.
The next piece of news is that Sonic Mania is actually a good game, apparently. The reviews are in Sonic Mania and the audience impressions are in Sonic Mania, and it generally seems like people are receiving this fantastically. I've heard words bandied about such as, it's the best Sonic game in a very long while, which is good. More interestingly, it's another step towards the return of the mascot platformer. It's another Crash Bandicoot, it's another... I mean, that's kind of it at the minute, but we know Spyro is probably on the way. We've got to imagine that Microsoft is going to do something with Banjo-Kazooie, because, Christ, they need to do something. More on that later. But we've got to imagine that these are the next kind of things being looked into, and we know that Activision has already said they're looking into what they can do further. So Sonic is the next mascot platformer to be given the outing that people wanted from it.
Yeah, and I think like it's good to see a return to. It's really just a return to the 2D. I think like Sonic never. There's pretty much not been any good Sonic 3D games. Really, like some of them have been passable, but he never really made a good transition into 3D. So it's good to see a game that kind of returns back to what people actually enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely, and. It's kind of a nice lesson in a way that sometimes embracing the tradition of a game and embracing its history is better than trying to refresh it, reinvigorate it. Sometimes franchises just need to stay where they are.
Yeah, and I think like Crash is similar in a lot of ways. Is that like when Activision they're doing it right now, don't they?
Yeah, Activision Vicarious Visions.
They had a thing of sort of every new Crash game has to have a gimmick. And the same thing that happened with Sonic. You know, every new game has to have a different gimmick. Every new game has to have like a different feature. It has to be, you know, and then what Crash game actually does best is the one that's just the original 3 Crash games.
Yeah.
You know, and we see this is Sonic because the Sonic Mania is essentially the old games, but bigger maps made, but it's the same kind of style, the same kind of graphics, the same look, you know. So people don't need new gimmicks and everything.
No, you're right, and I don't think that's to say that every game should be gimmickless. In fact, if a new Crash came out, I'd like to see something new done with it. I think there's some really cool ways that franchise could have an update, but I think it's acknowledging that people love a franchise for where it came from, and it's acknowledging that people want that nostalgia and that people want to buy into that, and that's not always a good thing. You know, sometimes it's like when you complain that a band doesn't sound the same as they did on the first album. Sometimes that's the point, but then it's also really nice when they embrace that first album again. So it's like finding the right balance, and it's good that Sonic has here.
Yeah, definitely.
The final piece of news this week is that Shadow of the Tomb Raider is likely, we think, to be revealed at Gamescom. Shadow of the Tomb Raider has been in the offing for quite a while, ever since it was leaked by that guy who left it on a train. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then there was the guy who left it on a plane, and then there was the person who left it on a PowerPoint. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider has basically been left in a lot of places, and it looks like the game is actually going to get a proper reveal, probably within the coming days. What the reveal looks like, whether it's like a full-on, we get an idea of what the game is reveal, or whether it's more a kind of, this is a game that's coming reveal, like, is it gameplay, or is it just the announcement of it? We're not sure. But it's frankly been a long time coming, and I'm surprised we didn't see it this evening.
Yeah, you're right, actually. It's surprising. Especially given like the previous kind of them working together. Yeah, interesting.
Which segues nicely onto what this evening was. A couple of minutes ago, we finished watching the Xbox Gamescom briefing, and we aren't able to sit together and do it live like we do at E3 every year, because it's a bit of a smaller show. But we are going to do our reactions to some of the bigger points of it and the kind of atmosphere of the conference as a whole. Lewis, what were your thoughts on it?
It didn't make me want to pre-order. I guess that's probably the first place to start at. Yeah, like, and it felt very much like this was kind of one big ad for the pre-order. Not a good one.
I'm trying to gauge your reaction first because I'm gonna go on a bit of a tirade about it in a second. But I want to gauge your reaction first because I think really you're a much better gauge of where they are at the minute. Like, you are somebody who doesn't have an Xbox One at the minute that's like your own Xbox. You have access to one, but you don't have your own one. And so really you're the consumer that they want to be engaging, right? Like, you bought a PS4 because they engaged you properly, because they had the games and the stories and the things you wanted. So really, like, when we're testing the waters of how Xbox are doing, if you're positive or negative, that's what they're kind of paying attention to at the minute.
Maybe. I'm not sure about that, actually. I think they're trying to kind of go for a different audience from me because, well, I don't know, they're not making moves that inspire me at the very least, so they don't kind of catch my attention too much. You know, one of the reasons I have the PlayStation at the moment is that, you know, I've got kind of 10 games for my PlayStation. For my PlayStation, they're all the exclusives, they're all the kind of the best games that are on it, you know, and it has these games, and Microsoft constantly show me that there's not much reason for me to get an Xbox. Like, you know, I probably come across a bit of a Sony fan, and I am a Sony fan, but I probably come across a little bit like a fanboy, I guess. And I think a lot of that is because I just don't see the games. If Xbox had the games, I'd go out and buy one. You know, if I could see the games that I'm kind of interested in or looking for, then yeah.
And I think that's totally fair. Like, I think that you were more likely to be engaged with Sony. You like Uncharted, you like those franchises, they mean a lot to you. But I don't think that's to say that you weren't likely to be engaged with Xbox either. You were engaged with those franchises as well. I know, I played them with you when we were much younger. And I think if they'd been handled correctly, just as if Uncharted is handled correctly, you're more likely to be in there. The reason I say this is because, like, I kind of worry sometimes that I come across as, or that I am too engaged with the brand to really be a fair criticism of it. Like, that I am so engaged in what Xbox is doing that they're more extreme for me. Like, they're either much better or much worse, whereas sometimes they can just be middling. From my perspective, and I'm sorry if you have children that are listening to the show, please don't let them listen to this. It is beyond words how much of a steaming heap of shite that show was. And I don't mean like in the traditional kind of E3 sense, because when E3 shows are shite piles, they're fun, right? Like, when something goes wrong at an E3 show, it's because you've got Satoru Iwata made out of a Muppet, or you've got the guy who dresses up as a moon on Sega or Square Enix's stage, or you've got the people who don't know how to present, or it's really awkward, or the guy who jumps for Peggle 2. Like, those things at least become memorable and interesting. This was the worst kind of show in that it was just an hour and a half of bland. There wasn't anything inspiring, there wasn't anything interesting, but there wasn't anything directly negative about it. It was polished, it was surprisingly well presented. Like, the presenters weren't great, but they're scripted and paid presenters. They're never great. Like, their job is to do as polished a version of something as possible. They're not necessarily the right people to be selling the product. But that's what they're doing. They're selling it, and they were fine for what they were doing. Everything went off as it was supposed to. The problem is that what was supposed to happen is in no way interesting. And that speaks to a bigger problem that Xbox is having right now, in that they have nothing particularly inspiring. Crackdown 3 is super inspiring, and they can't talk about it, because they don't know what's going on with that, clearly, so that how can they let a consumer know what's going on with that? Sea of Thieves looks kind of fine, but it's not inspiring enough to make you think, wow, this is, back to the glory days of Rare. It's not GoldenEye Perfect Dark inspiring, and so they're not going to be able to sell it as though it's Perfect Dark GoldenEye inspiring. I think they know that they have a problem with first-party studios. This is not how you solve that problem. And there's a number of actual big issues with the show that I think we'll get into, but I think the bigger issue with this is that I'm going to be incredibly pretentious here and speak directly to the nobody from Microsoft who's listening to this. You need to eat some humble pie. You need to stop pretending that this is the best console in the best year. We're not stupid. We know when something is going wrong. We know when there's a problem, and we know when things are shifting. PlayStation made exactly the same problems in the last generation, and the way they fixed it and the way they beat you this generation, and not beat around the bushes in any way, this is Xbox beaten. This is Xbox absolutely beaten. And the reason is because PlayStation came out and said, hey guys, we fucked up, here's how we're making it better. They didn't come out with the PlayStation 3 every year and say, this is why it's the best thing ever. They learnt from that. And Microsoft need to learn from it, and need to learn from it quickly. Because PlayStation, as we've detailed a number of times, have 20 years they can depend on. That's 20 years of franchises, 20 years of gaming, 20 years of families. Xbox don't. And they are much, much more disposable in the gaming industry. And if they don't learn that mistake now, it will be the mistake that kills them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very true.
Thank you. Let's talk about some of the more specific points of the show, few and far between as they were. The biggest reveal, and if you didn't watch the show, this is really a testament to how just god-awful it was. The biggest reveal was Jurassic World Evolution. I've got to say, I think it looks fairly cool. Like, I think as an idea, it's quite a cool little idea. But it's the furthest from AAA as possible.
Yeah, it looked very, like, I asked you whether it was, it looks kind of like mobile-y, because it was said it was pre-rendered as well. I don't know how much of what we saw was pre-rendered versus not. Mm-hmm. Because it very much reminded me of those adverts you get for mobile games where it's like, you'll have a game that looks like this massive battle going on, and then you load up the app and you're like, oh, it doesn't look anything like that trailer.
Right, exactly.
But maybe maybe I'm judging it unfairly, and it's going to be a proper game.
Now, a couple of things. Sorry to jump in on you there. A couple of things that have actually come out since the announcement of this. It's being developed by Frontier Developments. Now, you might know them for Elite Dangerous, which is a really cool series. More importantly, you might know them from Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah.
That's really good for this.
Yeah, no, it totally is. It totally is. Yeah, I think it is good for this. I still worry about that type of game. I think like this is a game genre that's been kind of ruined a little bit by microtransactions and all that kind of digital marketplace stuff. Because if the biggest announcement they could make, the thing that would actually make me buy it is if they came out now and just said it's not got microtransactions, everything that you buy with normal currency, you don't have to pay for anything. But that it's going to have some sort of microtransaction-y stuff in it.
Yeah.
It's going to have like, you can, buy the advanced buildings or something, because that's what this game genre does now. Like I remember I played something I guess similar to this is PS2 game of Jurassic Park, and you could build like similar sort of idea to this, and it was a great game.
It's called Operation Genesis, right?
Yes, that's the one. Yes, that's it. Yeah, and like if it's similar to that and it's not got too much microtransaction stuff, then yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. But I get worried about this stuff, No,
and I think you're right too. I think skepticism is really important with all of this. I as a concept, I think this is a really, really great concept, and I think it's one that people have been wanting for a long while. Build your own Jurassic Park is an idea that makes perfect sense for a tie-in game. And good to see that it's being developed by good people. It speaks to something that this is the biggest surprise in the show. It also speaks to a bigger problem that Microsoft has, is that this is coming everywhere. Like next year, PS4, PC, Xbox One. I'd imagine it'll come out on the Switch as well. Like it seems like a great fit for something like the Switch. So I mean, it's fine. It sounds like a great concept, and I'm not a huge Jurassic Park fan, so the people who it's aimed at will have a great time with this. But the show didn't really benefit muchly by having it in. So let's jump over some of the smaller moments. Recore HD, Recore Fancy Edition. Do you give a fuck?
So I just find it very interesting that like one of the announcements that they bring to this massive conference, there's loads of people that are fans watching, and it's like that game that wasn't that good, didn't really have that big of a following, and came out like a year ago. I think, yeah. So they've redone this Recore, and it's it only came out like a year ago. It's not something that people are like clamoring for. It wasn't that popular at the time. I can't imagine it's going to be that popular now. It's very interesting that that's what they bring to this big conference or this big show.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it wasn't much of a reveal. They even spoke towards that in the show. They were like, "This is something you've heard about before," but then why treat it as though it's like going to set the world on fire? It's Recore, and for the people who love Recore, that's cool, and it's good to see them supporting this franchise, but it seems like they're adding new modes to it, which are really cool. It seems like they've actually done good work on the game, but I don't think they've done work enough to turn a 6 game into like an 8 game. I don't think this is going to set the world's Metacritic or the fans on fire. I think this is a nice thing to add to an already nice game, and it doesn't need the giant fanfare that Xbox seems to give everything.
Yeah.
Then there was the discussion of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds as being produced, I believe, or published by Microsoft. Quick note to the side of this: this doesn't mean it's Xbox One exclusive. They said Xbox One console exclusive on the thing, except it's only in early access development, which means that.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
It's in their early access program. The guy said that they're developing it through the game preview build, we've seen many times that what that means is that when the game eventually comes out, it will come out on everything. Like it's like it's like the Tomb Raider Game of the Year edition, right? Like the next version of the game will likely be on everything. Which is, I mean, they've said themselves that they're open to developing for PlayStation, and there's nothing stopping them. And why would they?
Yeah.
Like this should be on as many consoles as possible. So I don't know why Microsoft's wasting their money publishing this, other than to secure it for, other than genuinely to probably not put it in the hands of Sony. Like,
well, it was a weird move with Tomb Raider. Just to mention that actually quickly, is that it meant that PS4 got like the better version of the game in the end.
Right.
But yeah, like in this case, I guess it probably wouldn't affect it like that. But it's, you know, you're right. Like just putting money there so that it's on Xbox and not on PS4.
I genuinely do. Like, I wonder if PlayerUnknown's like blew up kind of overnight, maybe over a couple of weeks, and you've got to imagine that the first two people knocking on the door were Microsoft and Sony. Sony were like, we don't give a fuck, this is going to come to PlayStation, because they know it is. So you've got to imagine that Microsoft is kind of holding this ransom a little bit, because otherwise they can't confirm it.
Yeah, well, we know that Microsoft are more than willing to pay massive amounts of money for big indie games.
Yeah.
So, you know, they've got a history.
I should be clear, that's pure speculation on my part. I have no facts to back that up, don't take it as gospel, but I have a feeling that's the kind of thing that was happening. What else was discussed? There was the Minecraft console, the Minecraft shape and coloured console. It looks cool. It's a great thing for the kids who love Minecraft. The redstone on it is a bit silly, I think.
Yeah, and it's also got, you know, like you know, it's a pointless feature because pretty much everyone puts their consoles flat. Having it like I don't know about you, but having it see-through on the side is a little bit on the side that you put down at the base is a little bit silly. Yeah,
also having it like see-through but on the side where all the cables are doesn't make any sense, because like you're probably more unlikely to see that side because you need it turned away from you for the cables anyway. So like,
yeah,
I actually like. From one perspective, I'm like, that lighting up red bit is a gimmick, and it won't... Like, you'll watch it once and go, that's cool, and then you've got a cool Minecraft console, so it's not the worst thing that it's a bit of a gimmick, but I can't imagine that it would have cost much more to just put some redstone on the top of it and go, look, but...
Well, the thing that gets me is if you put it on the other side, you'd get, like, the fancy fans starting up and all the, like, the actual insides that do have lights. Or glowing, you know, like that would be cooler.
Oh god, I don't know. It's like a cool idea, and it's going to be really cool for the kids who like Minecraft and want this console, but it seems a little bit half-baked.
Yeah, well, it seems that, you know, it's one of Microsoft's biggest things right now is just Minecraft.
Yeah.
So I think they've got to try it out whenever they can.
Then one of the final reveals was their Halo 5 is getting a 4K patch. Cool. And then a bunch of their family games are getting 4K remasters. So Zoo Tycoon is getting a 4K HDR patch remaster. I kind of think that's a good thing. When Zoo Tycoon came out, it kind of received good reviews and stuff. So of the 3 games that are getting remastered, I think that's probably the best one, and it's probably going to have the best response. Then there's the Disneyland game that came out a couple of years ago that requires the Kinect to play it. I think I've read online that they're putting regular controls in, which would make a lot of sense because they don't really support the Kinect anymore. But, like, Microsoft did not do a very good job of showing that they're worried about their games.
Yeah.
And then there was pre-order announcements, and that was it. Like, no one more thing, no big moment to end the conference on, no word of anything to be excited going forward, nothing really to look forward to other than the end of the year, nothing to fix the exclusive problem, really, like, just a lot of nothing. Also, like, still no Crackdown beta. Worrying. Still no Sea of Thieves beta. Worrying. Still no zombie game. What's the zombie game called?
State of Decay.
That's it. Still no State of Decay beta. Worrying. Like, this was all stuff you said was coming.
Yeah, and everything's getting kind of pushed back still, and it's not...
Right,
yeah.
like, Crackdown would be far less worrying if they were like, here's the beta. Like, if they were like, here's something that's at least playable, but we don't, like... I don't understand game development, and I don't work in game development, so everything I say here is with a giant caveat of, I know nothing. But what we've seen seems to be vertical slices, every time. Like, even the E3 demo seemed like a vertical slice. The demos before it seemed like vertical slices. What's worrying is, what is the body of that game? What state's it in? How far away is it? And not just how far away is it from like we're pushing it back 3 months, but how much work is it going to need after it releases? Does it need 3 more months, or does it need another year? Because, like, I think I kind of prefer that it has another year. Like, yeah, shit, we need it, but I think we need it to be good more than we need it to be out. I think I'd prefer that the game come out and play well and genuinely be cool and refreshing than just it's there.
Yeah, but I think one of the problems is that I get the impression that, there's studio execs that kind of ring up every day and go, you need to change this feature, people don't like the idea of it. You need to, change this based on like whatever people are saying on Reddit, or what the general kind of opinion of news sites are and all that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons. I tell you now, Crackdown's been pushed back because of the explosives in single player. Like 100%, that's what's happened.
Yeah.
They saw the response and they've gone, people don't like it, they want this, and so it gets pushed back another year, or gets pushed back another period of time.
Now,
and I think, go on.
Devil's advocate, either they've pushed it back because people have said that doesn't look good, which in that case is good. That's great. If it's just going back for a graphics retooling, that's fantastic. Or they said people going, this doesn't look good, and gone, oh, thank fuck, we've got 4 more months to work on this.
yeah, possibly. I don't know.
See,
like
that feels more realistic.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's worth. We seem very negative on this, and we are quite negative on this, and I think the general consensus online from what I've read is quite negative on this one. It says something that what speaks more to where Xbox is right now is the lack of things than what was there, is what was missing than what was present. I've said before that I think Phil Spencer might not be here very much longer. I think he might be telegraphing his exit from Xbox, and I've never felt that more than today. I feel like somebody like Shuhei Yoshida or not Shuhei, whoever is the head of PlayStation, I forget, because it used to be Jack Tretton. No, it's not him. I feel like the head of PlayStation or the head of Nintendo would have gone, hey, we're working on this though. Like Nintendo kind of did with the Pokemon RPG that was nothing more than a name, but people got excited, and Metroid 4. Whereas here they were kind of like, let's make it to the end of the year. And I almost wonder whether it's Phil kind of going, there's nothing more I can do here.
Yeah, they just don't have anything. That's possibly the truth of it. Because you're right, like, would they not come out and kind of go, here's something, it's shocking that, even at E3, and it's the same here, we still just didn't get anything. And, we talked about how it was their E3 to win, and this is kind of the same, like, this is a really quiet window. And obviously it's not going to be in, like, a few days, but at the moment, it's quiet. They're going to get all of the press, and what have they got to show at that press? Not really that much.
I was listening to Kind of Funny a couple of days ago, and they asked for people to write in about the state of Xbox, and I did write in. Also, I guess I should full disclosure this now. I support them with money, so like take everything I say with a grain of salt. But and I did write in, and the thing I ended my write in to them with was, if they don't fix this within the next few weeks, I worry less about the problem they face and more about the silence they face. The next opportunity for Xbox to change the narrative will be E3. Because they can't do like a PSX style event, right? Like they just don't have the positive momentum. They don't have the support behind them. The next chance for them to change something will be E3. I don't know about you, but I don't think Xbox can genuinely survive another 10 months of this.
Yeah, like we unless the only way that they'll do well is if Sea of Thieves is like the best game ever, or that sort of thing. We find out that Crackdown is like 20 times better than we thought, because they can get by on something like that. But yeah, I don't know.
Maybe, man. Also, like, I know I've harped on about this, but where the fuck is Crash Bandicoot? We know it's coming. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm worried about the brand, because maybe I am though. So like, I was about to say Microsoft have a shit ton of money, and if they wanted Xbox to keep going, they will. Like, Xbox will keep going. And Xbox makes them more money than it's ever made them before with stuff like Xbox Live and things, so they have no reason to stop it. But actually, when you look back at this conference, what they talked about a lot was those games going to other places. Right? Yeah. It was like Xbox going to PC, was Xbox support for games on other platforms, or the ability to play elsewhere. Microsoft looks like it's less and less committed to that box on its own, more than they have in a long time. And I think if the console is going to continue to exist, it will. Like, no sales will stop it from being there, because Microsoft is a marketing behemoth, and they'll keep going. I think if we don't see what the next generation changes, this may well become a two-horse race again. Really? And, well, I mean, by the end of this generation, it will be PS4 versus Switch. Yeah. Because the Switch is outselling it drastically, and it won't play the same games, and it won't do the same stuff, but when it's a game of sales numbers, which unfortunately, like, this is an industry, it is a game of sales numbers, it will be one versus the other, and Microsoft will have to fight harder than ever to survive. If they keep surviving, I think they can try and find a way to survive well. But this generation has taken a turn that I genuinely didn't think it would. And I love the industry because it's really fascinating to watch, but as somebody who, this is my primary box, like, this is my way of engaging with this content, and this is my preferred way of doing it, being frank, I'm quite nervy about how the industry looks in a couple of years, if not in a couple of months. Yeah, I can completely agree. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to E3 next year. I know I'm always looking forward to E3, but it's and I know it's a long way off, but you have to wonder, like, if we don't see something, I mean, if we were going to see something from Microsoft this year, or even in, like, the beginning of next year, we would have seen it now. So, yeah, this is it for now. Do you know, like, the really worrying thing I think about this is Microsoft have a tendency to focus on the year ahead, right? Like, their E3s are all about, here's the stuff you'll be playing by Christmas. They don't really tend to talk about, like, they tend to do more Fallout kind of things, in that they talk about something that's out in a few months' time. And I do really respect that. But every other E3 going into it, we've always had an idea of what's coming. Like, we've known that there's a Forza, we've known that there was Halo Wars 2, we've known that there was Crackdown, we would have known there was Scalebound had it not been cancelled. We had an idea. If they have something, next year they can blow out the water, because we have zilch. Like, there's nothing on the table. But if there's something that close on the table, why would we not know about it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, this is one of the things. Like we talked about how Sony wasn't particularly good at E3, but they still have things to show. You know what I mean? Like it's when we look at Microsoft, we have Sea of Thieves, which I don't know. I'm still a bit unsure about that game.
I agree.
It's kind of, I don't really know where it is in the market. I don't really know like what exactly it's going for at this point. And then I guess Crackdown. Yeah, I don't know. Like my point is that like, you get the impression that next year at E3 we're going to get a few more Sony things, because they're going to have like another 4 big. Well, I don't know. They're going to have another load of exclusives. After all these have already come out. And I just don't get that feeling with Microsoft. I don't know like what they're going to do after this. You get the feeling that everything's kind of winding down almost. And like the hype cycle is just kind of continuing for these games over and over. Without any sort of like release. Like if you went back a year from this point now, maybe a year and a half, the consoles, although Sony was outselling, on terms of games, they actually looked fairly similar because both were kind of promising stuff that wasn't out yet. Since then, PS4's had loads of games and loads of exclusives released that are kind of like had massive popularity. This year, if you type top 10 games 2017 into pretty much any website, you're going to find like 3 PlayStation exclusives right now for this year.
Right. And more worryingly, you're also, well, not more worryingly, like it's a good thing for the industry, but from an Xbox perspective, more worryingly, the rest of the stuff you'll see is Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like the top games will be ARMS, Mario Kart, Crash Bandicoot, Zelda, Uncharted, Horizon. Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of the games that will be topping Game of the Year lists will be, I mean, Christ, like it will be stuff that's PlayStation or Nintendo oriented, and then the stuff that's third party will likely, like, unless it's Assassin's Creed or I guess Shadow of Mordor, but everything else is on PlayStation side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. That's kind of the big thing, and I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing after this,
But then, to be fair, like we're very, very negative on it, and I think that conference came off very negatively. But as of half an hour of the conference finishing, the Xbox One X is sold out everywhere. Like you can't pre-order it; it's now sold out, and that would suggest something good for the console. So maybe there's life in this dying beast. Yeah. Maybe. I just hope there's more life than the console seems to suggest.
I wonder how many they had on pre-order, though, because they might be suffering from the same thing that the Nintendo Switch is suffering from, which is chip availability is really bad at the moment in general.
Now, I agree with you, but from another perspective, yes, I agree that is a problem. Equally, though, if they're selling at the same rate that the Switch is selling,
yeah,
that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess you're right, and I'm being a bit negative. So I genuinely wonder about this because, like, you see all of the news, and you see, I am on chats and stuff talking to people about it, and we're kind of consistently talking to each other about like, why doesn't this look good, or why, and yet still there's people out there that are like pre-ordering it and getting it. So maybe they just, I think like it attracts the people who don't have a big PC, or they don't have, or they're not, like in your case, you don't have a 4K TV, so you're not going to be as excited as someone who does. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure who's very excited to pick it up. I don't really know that. But I guess to some people, exclusives don't matter. And I guess to them, this is what they want. I don't know really, because it's very different from kind of the world I'm in.
They're very different audiences, and maybe we missed the mark in trying to cross them, or maybe Xbox has missed the mark in appealing to an audience and not getting the majority of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely not pre-ordering it. I love competition. I want competition to be there. But this generation, there just isn't competition. And like every time you get the chance to see Sony and Microsoft together, you see that there's not competition. Like when Microsoft has a big conference and like half of the games there are nothing to do with, well, not nothing to do with them, but like very tenuously connected. Half of them are like indies. Like I know ID at Xbox is cool, but actually something important to mention that's come out, I think post E3, but before this, is the whole anyone can bring their games to Xbox now thing. That they're really true. Pushing it. They're really pushing this idea that anyone can bring games to Xbox, and it's interesting that they're pushing it in this way. Like they're not just saying like, oh, an indie dev can come along. They're saying anyone can download a game making software and bring it on Xbox, and that's really strange that they would come out and do that, considering that there's so much negative press for like Steam, Greenlight, and for the PlayStation Store in general on their side. It's interesting that they would be so available on Xbox now.
Yeah, I agree in that sense, but I also think like I think I prefer it this way to their dumb indie policy, which was before like you have to be first on us or whatever. I prefer them that they are good to indie developers than they're bad to the ones they don't like, if that or bad to the ones that are more spread evenly. I think I don't think there's much more that can be said on this.
No.
It was not a great show. It was not a good showing for Microsoft. It was not a good hype builder, and it didn't really give anyone any reason to be excited for the console. Nonetheless, though, the console seems to be selling well despite limited availability, and I guess it kind of remains to be seen what it looks like at the end of the year when all of this settles a bit.
Yeah.
Sorry if it's been an overly negative one of the show. We tried to be quite positive about this, but I mean, if you watched that, it was hard. It was hard, man. Lewis, it's lovely to have you back. I look forward to seeing you next week when we'll complain about something else, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And thank you for listening to the show. It means a great deal to us. You can catch us on YouTube, or you can also catch us on iTunes. We publish at 6:30 in the evening on YouTube and earlier that day on iTunes, so you can get it on your way to work. If you feel like liking, favoriting, sharing, commenting on this anywhere, we love it because we love having a conversation with you, and it gets us out in front of a few more people, which would be great. Other than that, thank you very much for listening to us go on about how terrible Xbox is for nearly an hour now. It's been a pleasure. We hope you enjoy it. We'll see you next week. And the game's up.